The Endless House. Chapter 1. The Map That Lied. The storm did not arrive like weather. It arrived like a curtain. Pulled hard, pulled fast, pulled straight across the sky. All day had been gray, not dangerous, only dull. A valley of tired hills and a road the color of old bone. Dust in the grass, dust in my boots, dust in my mouth. Then the world held its breath. The wind quit. Leaves flattened. Birds stopped mid-cry, with their mouths open. I looked up. One drop of rain hit my cheek, cold as a fingertip from the dead. Then the sky split. The rain fell in ropes, not sheets. Ropes, heavy enough to bruise. It hammered the road to pulp in seconds. Mud grabbed my heels like hands under the earth. I ducked beneath a half-dead pine. The bark bled black. The needles rattled like coins in a tin. I tore open my pack and pulled out the map. The paper should have been ruined. It wasn't. Dry, crisp, edges sharp as if just cut. Ink perfect, as if the page were a door that water could not pass. The house was there, a neat square in the corner of the valley. A tiny peaked roof sketched above it by a cheerful hand. Friendly, promising. A lie. I had not seen any house since dawn. No chimney, no fence, no track worn by cart or foot. Only stone and grass and the ache that comes from walking too long toward something that does not exist. The rain battered the tree and ran off in sheets. I turned the map. I turned it again. The square did not move. Then it moved. Not far. Not the way a finger would. The lines thickened. They swelled. They relaxed. A pulse in ink. A heartbeat on paper. I blinked hard. The square looked the same again, but my skin knew. Larger. Just a fraction. Larger. Lightning ripped the valley. Not white. Green. Like a sick sun tearing cloth. In that flash, I saw the path. Pale gravel. Straight as a spear. Lined with stones that looked like teeth. Not there a moment before. There now. The path pointed to a shape in the rain. A roofline. 3 stories at least. Windows like black eyes. A posture that leaned but never yielded. The house. The map crinkled in my fist. Loud. Too loud for paper. I folded it and jammed it in my coat. I stepped out from the tree and let the rain hit me full. The path did not soften underfoot. The gravel did not wash. It was not built from rock. It was built from intention. It wanted me. The iron gate rose from the storm like a jaw. Bars twisted into vines, then bones, then letters from an alphabet I had never learned. Rain clung to the bars. It trembled. It did not fall through. I pushed. The gate groaned once and opened as if a hand inside had been waiting at the latch. No lock, no chain, no sign that anyone had come or gone for years. Beyond lay bare earth and carved stones. No hedges, no garden, no flowers killed by neglect. Only geometry. Rows of 3s. Squares nested within squares. Circles with missing mouths. The house rose with each step. Not closer, larger. Angles revealed themselves that did not exist at distance. A chimney split into 2. A roof peak doubled back on itself. Windows multiplied and then hid. By the time I climbed the first stair, I could not count them. Every time I tried, the number slid sideways and came back wrong. The door was oak and iron, studs hammered deep. No knocker, no bell, only a seam. I laid my palm on the wood, warm, dry. No rain had touched it. The warmth ran into my wrist like a whisper. I pushed. The hinge complained. The door sighed. The house breathed in. Silence. The storm stopped at the threshold. No rain. No wind. No thunder. Only the echo of my boots on warped boards and a faint tick. Then another. Then another. Tick, 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 tick. A heartbeat somewhere deep. I turned to test the door. It was closed, not stuck, locked, not swollen with weather, chosen. My throat was dry. "Hello," I said. The hall swallowed the word and gave me nothing back. The tick kept time for both of us. A runner of old carpet lay crooked on the floor. Red once, brown now. Dark patches where rain would have soaked in if rain had ever been allowed to live here. 7 doors faced me. I was certain there had been only one when I stepped inside. Now there were 7. Dull brass handles. Paint the gray of old ash. The map crackled in my pocket. Too loud. I pulled it out. The square had grown. Again. Fine lines had appeared inside it. A stub of corridor. A box. Another box. A wing where no wing had been. I looked up. The hall had lengthened to match. A new door waited at the end. Something behind it put its weight to the wood, and then away. I dropped the map to the floor. The square stretched while I watched. Ink crawled like ants. A long corridor slid out just as the boards beneath my boots rolled forward. The house was not on the page. The page was the house. Both were writing. The nearest handle was cold, bone cold. When I touched it, a small breath slid under the door and ran across my wrist. Not air, meaning it carried the shape of a word. Do not I let go. I am not brave. I am good at listening when listening keeps your bones in your skin. The tick grew louder. Tick, tick, too steady to be a broken clock, too patient to be anything else. I picked up the map. It was light and heavy at once. Paper in my hand, stone in my chest. I needed rules. In places like this, rules keep your feet attached to your legs. I turned the map over and wrote on the blank with the small pencil I keep behind my ear for markets and mistakes. Do not trust doors that multiply. Do not speak first. Count your steps. Learn the sound of the house. The pencil line pressed deep. The paper took it and did not let the graphite shine. It looked like a notch cut into bone. I moved. The first door to my left breathed once and went still. The second to my right trembled. I ignored them. I walked toward the door the house had just added. It felt honest to me to lie while it is still learning to speak. My boots creaked. Boards bowed. The carpet coughed a puff of dust that smelled like old wool and old secrets. I stepped around it. The added door had a window beside it. The glass was not glass. It was a pane of oil, thin and dark. When I set my fingers to it, the cold refused me. It gave back nothing. No chill, no warmth, no reflection. I leaned close and cupped my hands to make a shadow. I looked through. The sky beyond was wrong. Not cloud, not storm, not night. A field of black with a smear of stars that did not belong. They were the wrong color, too blue, too sharp, too near. They were arranged in a grammar I did not know. 2 stood where Orion would have stood if the world had been kind. A red thread stitched 7 of them into a curve that hurt my teeth. I drew back so fast my knuckles struck the frame. Pain grounded me. I kissed the bruise and tasted iron. The window pulsed. A star slid closer, as if the pain were a lens dragged by a hand. Not a star. An eye without iris or lid. An idea of seeing. I covered the glass with both palms. Not now, I said. Not yet. The pain cooled. The smear of stars retreated. The wrong grammar unhooked itself from my mouth. I wrote on the back of the map, "Do not look through windows unless you are ready to be seen." The tick in the deep house smiled. That is how it sounded. Like a mouth pulling at the edges of a clock. I opened the new door. The room smelled of paper kept too long behind plaster. A small table. 3 chairs. 1 chair faced the wall. The wall wore a portrait. The portrait wore me. Not exact. Not a mirror. My face, if it had been painted by a hand that loved colors I had never owned. The eyes were a fraction too far apart. The mouth too patient. The hair wrong in an honest way. A label was scratched into the gilt frame where a name had been. The scratch read, "Guest." I shut the door, softly. The tick said yes. I wrote on the map, "Do not greet yourself." I turned back to the hall. 2 more doors had arrived. The hall was not lengthening now. It was thickening. The air felt folded. I needed a landmark. I needed a sound that was not tick. A scent found me. Oil, metal, time. I followed it. The door at the curve did not breathe. It waited. When I laid my hand on the handle warmed a degree, as if a pulse ran under brass. Inside a clock room, not one clock, many. Wall clocks with faces cracked and faces sunbright. Mantel clocks with fat bellies and thin hands. A long case clock in the corner too narrow for its height. None of them ticked. In the middle, on a table that was also an altar, a pendulum hung without casing, a rod of dark metal, a bob the size of a heart. The bob swung, tick, 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 no gear, no movement, no mechanism, only motion and sound. I put 2 fingers beneath the bob. Air brushed my skin. It should have struck me. It passed through as if my hand were not yet counted. On the wall behind the pendulum, someone had written with a finger in dust, "Do not let the house count for you." The dust shivered. The letters shifted. The sentence became, "Do let the house count for you." I wiped it with my sleeve until the gray smeared. I wrote beneath it with the edge of my nail, "Count yourself." The nail left a light groove. The dust did not fill it. The pendulum swung. Tick slowed more. Tick stopped. The room waited to see what I would do. I turned and left. Door shut. Handle cold again. Tick resumed on the other side of the wall, as if a breath had been held and released. The hall had learned another trick. It had grown a bend that bent back to where I had started. The front door did not exist there. Only a blank of wall and a runner of the same red-brown. A table had been pushed against the plaster below, a narrow mirror. The mirror held no me. It held a hall that belonged to another house. A child had drawn on the plaster beside the mirror with black chalk. Lines like a map. Rooms laid out in little boxes. A staircase drawn as a snake. At the bottom of the chalk snake, the child had written, "Up," under it, in a different hand. "Do not trust arrows." At the top of the snake, a third hand had added, "Trust stairs that go where they should not." I did not smile. I am not proud of how often I have trusted the wrong thing because it had the right shape. But I will read a child's chalk before I read a landlord's lease. I found the stair, not the grand one, a narrow one, half hidden behind a door that should have led to a closet. The stair was steeper than it wanted to be. The treads were worn at the edges where feet that are careful put themselves. I climbed and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At 10, I reached a landing with 2 doors. I did not stop. 11, 12, 13. At 13, the stairs stuttered, not the boards. The idea of upward. It wanted to fold. I told my feet to keep going. They obeyed. 14, 15, 16. The stair breathed out. It had not expected me to count in a dialect it did not control. At 21, the stair ended at a hall with 3 windows. I did not look through them. I looked at the floor. Dust lay in soft blankets, interrupted by 2 tracks. Bare feet. Small, moving away from me. Beside them, a second track with no toes. Only long, narrow ovals. Claws or cane tips, or something that loved even spacing. I wrote on the map, "Follow dust that knows where it is going. Avoid dust that has been told to go." The first door on the left bled cold light under its sill. The second door on the right sang just loud enough for a tooth to hear. The third door straight ahead waited without opinion. I took the door without opinion. A library. Shelves along 2 walls. A ladder that would not roll. A window that faced a sky without moon. I stayed 3 steps from the glass. I read the books with my head turned, the way you look at a dog you do not trust and do not want to insult. The first book I pulled had no title. The cover was the same color as the wallpaper. When I opened it, the paper sighed. It was a ledger. Columns drawn in light ink, no numbers. Names written where items should be. Not mine, not yet. The second book was smaller and rude. It called itself Rules. Inside were lines that looked like mine. Do not speak first. Do not trust doors that multiply. Count your steps. Then lines that were not mine but belonged to the same family. If a door is thinner than its shadow, let it starve. If a window shows a sky you loved, it is lying. If the house offers you food, count the knives. Halfway through the book the ink darkened, and the sentences began to fight each other. Trust the long stare. Do not trust the long stare. Read what the house writes. Do not let the house teach you letters. If you must run, run toward the sound. If you must run, run where sound dies. At the end, a hand I knew from the mirror's chalk had written, "This place does not punish rule breakers. It punishes rule makers." But also, rules are the only rope we get. I slipped the book into my coat. It did not want to go. It went anyway. The third book was a map, not of rooms, of windows, a chart of wrong skies. Each pane marked with a symbol. 7 shapes repeated: hook, circle, circle with a mouth, square with a missing side, trident, ladder, eye. Beside each symbol a note. Hook will let you in if you let it smell your breath. Circle shows you the hour, never the place. Circle with mouth will count your teeth and be angry. Square with missing side leads outside to a place that is not outside. Trident invites rain. Ladder offers up, "I learned you." At the bottom of the page, a warning. If you must choose a window, choose ladder. If ladder is not there, choose square, but walk sideways. If eye is the only one, close your eyes and keep walking until your shoulder finds wood. I put that book inside my coat too. Books like that try to choose their readers. I choose back. On the writing table, by the window sat a folded note. My name on the outside. Not a nickname, not a wrong shape. My name, a hand I did not know. I did not open it. I blew it off the table with a slow breath. It slid across the floor and came to rest against the far skirting board. I left it there until I could decide what to be. The library door shut behind me with a small respectful click. The hall waited. I listened. Most houses have air that moves. This house had thought that moved. It sounded like pages turned in a room you cannot reach. It sounded like someone rearranging knives in a drawer and not wanting you to notice. It sounded like a mouth working at a word it cannot get its teeth around. I wrote on the map, "Do not forgive this place for sounding like a home." The dust tracks turned left. I followed. The hall led to a gallery with portraits hung in a row, like a lineage no one would admit. Men in stiff collars. Women with mouths too small. Children in lace with the eyes of men who regret. At the last frame, the paint was still wet. It smelled of turpentine and tongue. The subject was a blank panel with a shadow already sketched. My shoulders, my left ear wrong. The painter had started with the part of me I always hated in photographs. I walked away. The house pressed a door into the wall ahead of me, as a hand might press a bruise to see if it still hurts. I waited. The door whitened. A number appeared where a name would have been. The tick changed. Not louder, nearer. I turned the handle. A small room with a small table and a small bell. The bell had no tongue. Beside it, a half-eaten biscuit that had not been baked in this century. The room had the feeling of a place used to wait for a person who never arrives. In the dust on the table, someone had written with the tip of a spoon, "Ring nothing, eat nothing, wait for no one." Under the sentence, fingertip marks where a hand had been moved by another hand. The door closed softly, too softly, soft as a promise you know will be broken. I retraced to the narrow stair. Down one flight to prove it would go down. It did. Down another, still honest. At the bottom I found a kitchen that belonged to the wrong century, and a sink that belonged to something with a longer mouth than mine. I turned the tap. Water crawled up the spout from below, and held there like a small animal standing on its hind legs to smell the air. It recoiled when it met me. It slid back down and took its breath with it. I shut the tap gently. You can offend a house the way you offend a person. Slam what should be touched. Touch what should be left alone. The pantry door opened before I touched it. Inside, shelves with jars. Flour white as bone dust. Sugar caught in lumps like teeth. Something black and glossy in a jar without label. The lid was waxed. The wax was bitten. The back door of the kitchen should have led to a yard. It led to a short passage lined with hooks. On one hook hung a coat that would have fit me. On another hung a key on a ribbon. The ribbon was wet. I did not take it. The ribbon would want to belong to a throat soon. I wrote on the map. Keys are opinions, not answers. The narrow passage ended in a door with a small sliding panel. I slid it. Black beyond. I did not put my eye there. I held the map to the opening and let the house read me instead. The sliding panel shut itself like a mouth remembering it had teeth. I went back through the kitchen to a second door that I had not noticed a moment before. It led to a small scullery with a window above a deep sink. On the sill, someone had left a bowl. In the bowl lay 7 nails. Each nail had a head stamped with a small symbol. Hook, circle, mouth, square with a missing side, trident, ladder. I took ladder. It was warm. The head left a round of heat in my palm. Behind me, the tick had found a new rhythm. It was counting down. I returned to the first hall, climbing stairs that tried to count me wrong and failed. The carpet runner had turned from red-brown to a brown-black. That meant it remembered a different shoe. The mirror gave me a reflection now, not mine. A hall of another house where another me had chosen the letter and opened it and had not come back from what he found inside. I put the nail in my coat pocket and told myself I would not make his mistake. I would make my own. At the far end of the hall, the house had shaped a new corridor and named it with a feeling. The feeling was, be careful with your breath. Sometimes a corridor becomes a throat. I walked that way. The walls drew close, and then farther apart, like things that had forgotten how to hold still. A shutter banged somewhere in a wind that did not exist in this air. A door opened to my left. No hand, no hinge sound, just open. Inside, a drawing room where no one had drawn breath for 50 years. A low table set for tea that would never be poured. 3 cups placed for 2 people, and one who was late. On the mantel, a photograph in a silver frame that felt like grief when I looked at it. The photograph was of the front of the house. The steps, yes. The door, yes. The windows above the door, yes. Behind those windows, a sky. Not the sky I had left outside. A black sky with a ribbon of pale stars bending where the roof line should have been. Someone had scratched a line through the photo with a pin and written on the glass, "Do not use the front door." I did not argue. On the far wall, a tall case opened like a wardrobe. Not shelves, not coats, a ladder. It leaned into darkness. It did not reach a ceiling. It went up and up and up to where the tick was not, and then came back down to my feet with a small bow. I understood the nail in my pocket. I pressed its head to the wooden stile. The wood accepted the heat. A small symbol burned there. Ladder, above, a faint light answered. Not lamp, not day. Permission. I climbed. My hands found rungs that did not exist the first time I reached, and then existed the second. My feet stepped where there was only air, and did not fall. The house made rungs to meet me, because I carried the ladder's name. At the top I came into a narrow room with a single window and a single chair. The chair faced the glass. The glass faced a sky. Not mine, not yours. A field of black and blue, with stars pulled thin like wire. They bent into a spiral that made my ribs ache. I stood behind the chair and kept my hands on its back. "What do you want?" I asked the window. I meant the house. I said the window because saying house felt like handing it a key. The glass did not answer. Something behind the stars did. A pressure on the bridge of my nose, as if a heavy finger had been set there by a hand that was complemented by being invisible. I lowered my head. I closed my eyes. "And what will you give?" I said. The glass cooled. The pressure left. The tick came back to me from somewhere lower. It sounded patient. It sounded pleased. I went back down the ladder. At the bottom, the drawing room had lost its tea. The cups were gone. The table was bare. The photograph on the mantel had turned its back. Silver frame faced me, glass to the wall. I had learned enough of this place to know gratitude and leave-taking were both currencies it collected. I offered neither. I stepped into the hall. The house had put out a meal, not on a table, on the floor, at the place where I had set the map down when I first entered. Bread, cheese, a knife, a small salt cellar shaped like a bird. I wrote on the back of the map, "If the house feeds you, ask who ate last." The bread was still warm. The cheese had a bite missing. The knife had no crumbs on it. The salt in the little bird was damp. I stepped past the meal without letting my shadow touch it. The hall ended at a door with no handle, a small slot at head height, a brass plate beside it. "Welcome," the plate said. The letters were crooked, as if a child had hammered them with his first hammer and his first pride. Below the crooked welcome, someone had scratched, "Do not let this place greet you twice." The slot whispered. Breath came out, not air, breath. It carried a word the way a hand carries a coin. The word was my name. I did not give it back. I pushed against the handleless door with my shoulder. It opened like an eyelid. Beyond lay another hall, short, dark. At the end, a door with a peephole. I held up the map. I pressed it to the peephole. The paper was light and cold. The peephole warmed. On the map, ink slid. The square of the house stretched. A small rectangle appeared within the square. It was labeled in a hand I had not seen yet. "Your room." I removed the map from the peephole and stared at the door. The door stared back. I kept my hand at my side. My hand wanted the handle. There was no handle. The tick changed again. It counted me. 1, 2, 3. I stepped back. "Not yet," I said again. "To hell with yet." No. The hall softened like tallow held near flame. The door lost edges. The peephole darkened. I turned away and walked back the length of the house the way a fish swims back through a net it has already broken. The mirror offered me a corridor that belonged to a person I did not want to meet. The kitchen offered me a ribboned key. The ladder room offered me a chair that would remember my weight too well. The portrait gallery offered me the promise that wet paint dries. I went instead to the clock room. I laid my hand against the pendulum and let it pass through me again. The tick stopped in the instant my hand met the swing. I spoke a rule out loud with the voice I had kept in my throat for this. "Count yourself," I said, "and do not read aloud the names the house gives your doors." The pendulum shook like a horse that objects to the bit. Then it found its pace again. Tick, tick, tick. The dust sentence on the wall had changed while I was gone. "Do" was the only word left. The rest had stirred and slid like worms. I used the edge of my nail. I wrote under it, "Do not be the first thing in the room that believes." I left the clock room and found the hall had shortened in an honest way. I could see the far wall without moving. The front door still did not exist. I allowed the house one small victory. I set the map on the floor where I had set it when I came in. I kneeled. I smoothed the page. The square stretched as my fingers moved. It wanted to please me. It wanted to show me how big it was. "Stop," I said. The ink steadied. The wings and corridors held their places like animals that have been told to sit and are trying to decide if the reward will be meat or safety. I wrote a final set of lines on the back of the map, and I read them with my mouth closed so the house could not learn the shapes of my words. "Do not let it count down for you. Do not enter a room with your name on it. If a window shows a sky that knows you, close your eyes and find wood with your shoulder. Keys are opinions. Ladders can be learned. Eat nothing, ring nothing, greet no one. If the house offers a choice, choose neither and make a third." When I lifted my head, a pale door had grown in the wall to my left. No handle, no hinges, No welcome. Only a narrow seam and a feeling that belonged to old wood and old ships. The seam opened a fraction without me. Air touched my cheek. Not cold, not warm. Tide. I stepped toward it. When I did, the map in my hand heated as if ink had become blood. On the face of the map, a new line wrote itself in a slanting hand I knew from nowhere and everywhere. Come. I stared until the word blurred. Across the room, the small meal on the floor shifted. The knife turned to face me. The salt bird shed to grains like teeth. Something inside the bread exhaled. The tick stopped. The house held its breath to listen. I put the map under my arm. I set both hands on the pale door and pressed my forehead to the seam. It smelled like rope and salt and an attic that never learned sun. You may count me, I said, but you do not name me. You do not write me. You do not keep me. The seam widened. A dark beyond it did not belong to halls or rooms or stairs. It belonged to outside, not our outside. Another, on the map, the square changed shape, not larger, different. The roofline drew a curve where a roofline should not have permission to curve. At the bottom of the square, the neat peaked roof symbol inverted and became a mouth. The word on the map that had said come rearranged itself, one letter at a time. Home. I laughed once, soft, ugly. A prayer and a curse wearing the same coat. I slid my hand into the seam. The dark bit me with the gentle teeth of sleep. I took my hand back. I closed the pale door. The tick returned, not from the clock room, from the hall, from the walls, from the stairs, from beneath the floorboards. The house was counting everything and everyone and every word, and it had not yet made a mistake I could use against it. I sat on the floor with my back to the door that wanted to be a mouth. I set the map on my knees. I pressed my thumb into the corner and left a print where the paper should have refused me. It took the print. It kept it. It fed a line of ink around my whirl like a cat curling around a leg it intends to own. I did not pull away. You will not have me, I said, but I will have you. I tore the map in half. The sound was louder than thunder. The ink bled like something that had been waiting to bleed. The house answered with a sound I had not heard yet. Not tick, not breath, not the scrape of a door. A single word from deep in the wood where wood remembers being tree. No. The lights in every wrong window I had not yet looked through flared and went black again. The front door that was not a door sighed. The meal on the floor cooled like a body too quickly. I held the two halves of the map apart in my hands. I did not tear them again. I am brave only in small economies. On the floor between my boots, where dust lay heavy and honest, new letters wrote themselves with the tip of an invisible finger. Welcome, they wrote. Then they thought better. Then they wrote, we remember. I smiled without teeth. Good, I said. So do I. And the house, which had spent a long time trying to be bigger than it was, grew quieter instead. Only for a moment. Only enough to let me feel how much of it was still waking. Then the tick began again from someplace deeper than any room, and from behind the pale door came the sound of a tide under floorboards. The chapter of the map that would have called me by name folded itself closed. The hall breathed. The next door opened somewhere I could not see, and spoke softly, in a voice that had not decided whether it was mine. Later, it promised. I stood. I set my shoulders. No later, I said. Now. The house laughed with the sound of wood bending, and somewhere far below, something heavy turned over in its sleep and decided to listen. Chapter 2. The rooms with wrong windows. The house did not sleep. It held still. That is not the same. I stood with the torn map in my hands until the ink stopped trying to mend itself. When it gave up, it did not dry. It waited. That was worse. I slid both halves into my coat, paper against rib, pulse against ink. The hall listened. I let it. Listening costs less than speaking. A door ajar on the left breathed a little. I ignored it. Another at my back pressed itself shut with the manners of a servant who disapproves. I ignored that too. I chose a door that had not asked for me. The knob was not cold this time. It had learned my skin and made itself a degree warmer, so I would not flinch. I opened it anyway and kept my shoulder wedged against the frame so the door could not close without me. A long room with low light waited, chairs, rung by an inch. A rug with a pattern that stepped sideways when I looked straight at it. On the far wall, 3 windows in a row. Each pane wore a different sky. Left, a blue too deep to breathe, full of stars at noon. Their light had weight. My shoulders sagged toward the glass. Middle, a low gray with a sun like a coin rubbed thin, hanging too near, dragging heat off the floorboards and into itself. Right, a black that was not night and not absence. A black with depth and pressure. Things moved there the way fish move in a river you can only hear. I stayed in the doorway and counted the boards between me and the rug. 7. I put one foot on the first. Heel 2 would toe to rule. The left window pulsed. A constellation I did not know tugged itself into a crooked hook. The hook tilted until it looked like an ear. It listened. I spoke without sound and with all my mouth. No. The hook flattened. The stars unbent. The pane cooled. The middle window showed me a reflection that was not mine. A person with my height and shoulder and the wrong mouth. It lifted a hand toward the glass from the other side. I did not lift mine. When it saw I would not greet it, it smiled with patience and placed something flat against the pane. A paper with my name across it in the same hand that had written your room on the map. I did not read the lines below my name. I counted again. 2, 3, 4. The rug shifted under its own pattern and tried to meet me halfway. I stepped back a board and it lost its nerve. Patterns are brave when you let them lead. They become furniture when you do not. The right window, it was not a window. It was a mouth that had learned to be glass. Behind it, the black river turned once, twice, tasting the current. Something in the dark touched my teeth from inside my skull. I covered my mouth with the back of my hand. Not that either, I said, and the words pushed against my palm as if they wanted to get out and see their own breath. The house took the room back. The light dimmed a hair. The chair legs sighed. The right pane let go of my teeth. On a little table, under the middle window lay a stack of cards. Plain, thick, blank. On the top card, a single line in pencil. Write one true rule. I picked it up between 2 fingers and held it like a bad coin. The card warmed. The grain of the paper rose like skin. I left it where it lay. You do not feed a house its own language. A sound at the far end of the room. Not tick, not breath, a zipper. I turned slow. A tall wardrobe stood half open in the shadows. Its wood was the color of old tea. A strip of night leaked from the crack, and from that night came the sound again, zip, 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 the sound of someone opening a bag in the dark, careful not to wake the person on the bed beside them. I did not have to open it. It opened itself. Inside hung coats that had not come from any century I could name. Sleeves too long, buttons made of small, flat bones. Between 2 coats hung a mirror where no mirror should fit. The mirror showed the front steps of the house. Wet stone, iron studs. A door that was not a door, pretending to be shut. A woman stood on the steps under an umbrella, the color of bruises. I knew her. I did not know her name. She held a folded map between 2 fingers, as if it were a dirty handkerchief. She lifted her face and looked directly into the mirror from the wrong side, as though she had been expecting this exact moment. Her mouth shaped a word I could not hear. Behind her, the gravel path was gone. Only grass, only mud, only the rain. No gate, no teeth, no sign of me on the other side. She tapped the glass of the mirror with the map. Once, twice, 3 times. The wardrobe door closed without my hand. I held very still until my breath decided what shape to take. The cards under the middle window waited. A second line had appeared on the top. Write 2 if the first was a lie. I left that too. I eased the room out of the house the way you remove a splinter, slow, steady, without letting it feel your relief. The door shut behind me with the care of a person putting a baby down and hoping it sleeps. The hall listened as before. I listened back. From below, a faint thrum like footsteps underwater. From above, a thin chorus, threads of glass, humming in a wind that was not wind. Far down the bend, a cough, a human cough, dry, angry, embarrassed to exist. I went that way. At the bend, the house had opened a new space only wide enough for me and my doubt. A balcony, a rail of iron. Beyond the rail, a shaft went straight down. No stairs around it, no ladder, only plaques set into the wall, at intervals like gravestones tipped on their sides. Each plaque bore a name. Some had 2, a few had 3. Under the names, a date and a phrase, carved shallow, with a blunt tool. E. Trop, 1889. Do not look in. S. Coombe, 1913. Come back when the sky forgets you. M. Jameson, 1954. If IT feeds you, IT will starve you. A. 20. Your room is not a room. One plaque was blank, not empty. Blank, like a page already written upon but pressed so hard the letters were under the surface. I set my palm against it, my name pushed back through the stone as if someone was writing on the other side. I pulled my hand away and wiped it on my coat as though stone could stain. From below, a whisper climbed. Not a person, not a word, a movement of air that had chosen grammar. I left the balcony. I do not mind heights. I mind depths that climb. 2 doors later, the house made me an apology. A parlor with a fire. Fire that burned. It should not have. I had not seen a flue. I had not smelled smoke. But the flames licked wood like old friends, and heat lay in the room like a sleeping dog. On the mantel, a clock that did not tick. On the hearth, 3 logs that would not blacken. Between them, a small metal grate polished by hands that did not like ash under their nails. A kettle hung over the blaze. It did not steam. It breathed. There were cups on a tray. I counted them because counting was all I had that did not belong to the house. 1, 2, 3. The 4th had been taken away recently enough to leave a ring on the silver. I sat in the chair that had worn the fewest shapes of fear. The fire made no sound. It was light without noise. I watched it until I saw the pattern of its silence. Every 7th breath of mine, the flames leaned, not toward air, toward me, as if empty spoons had been held beneath my tongue and the fire was trying to warm them. I stood up, the flames released. On the far wall, a painting of the house under a sky that was almost ours. A low moon, thin cloud, a shadow on the steps that did not belong to a person. The paint at the bottom left was fresh. I touched it with my fingertip and came away with a smear, the color of bruises. My fingertip tingled. I put it in my mouth on reflex. It tasted like pomegranate rind and a key. I wiped my tongue on my sleeve like a child. The house did not laugh. It did the thing worse than laughter. It listened harder. On a side table lay a leather-bound book with a broken clasp. Not a ledger, a journal. I opened to the first page. I was told there were rules. I was told the rules were old. I was told if I kept them, I might leave with the same name I brought. I am writing this because I kept the rules and failed. And I broke the rules and failed. And the only difference was which part of me the house ate first. The handwriting was careful. Letters stood at attention. Lines kept themselves straight even where tears had fallen and changed the paper. I read, "Do not write on the house unless it writes on you first. Do not show it your back while you read. Do not answer when it says your name from another room. If a window shows you stars you understand, close your eyes at once. It will only do that right before it takes something you cannot lose twice. If you hear someone you love, go to a door with a mirror, not the hallway where the voice is. The mirrors belong to someone else. Better to offend them than the house." Halfway through, a pressed flower, not color, not scent. a shape that remembered being alive so hard that the paper bent around it. A page later, the hand failed. The letters sprawled. Ink stained the gutter as though the writer had bled there. The last line I could read said, "There is a window that is not a window. It has a frame. It has glass. It looks on a sky. It smells like wet rope. If you find it, close it gently. Do not open it to prove you can." I closed the journal. The fire did not warm the room any longer. It lit it. That was all. I walked out. The next room waited with the patience of old furniture. A nursery, a cradle with sides too high to be humane, a tiny chair with teeth marks on one leg, blocks, wooden, each face burned with a letter. I kneeled by the blocks. I turned them over with one finger. A, B, C. Then the letters went wrong. A circle with a mouth, a hook, an eye, on one cube, the ladder, on another, the square with one side open like a mouth that had learned manners. I spelled nothing. The blocks spelled me. They arranged themselves into my name without my hand. I pushed them gently apart. They bumped back together of their own shape. And the cradle, a folded blanket, blue once, gray now. I did not touch it. The blanket lifted at one corner anyway, as if a small breath under it had turned into a thought. On the wall, a small window without glass, a frame and nothing else. Beyond it, dark, not night dark, closet dark, then stars, not ours, not even sky. A sheet of pricked light, as if someone had taken a needle to leather, held it against a candle, and invited you to look through. I shut my eyes. I put my hand to the frame and found wood. Old, splinter, honest. I pulled the frame down gently, the way you put a lid back on a jar that has grown teeth. It resisted. Then it agreed. The dark closed. The house did not thank me. It found a new position to watch from. A music box on the dresser began to turn, though no one had wound it. Notes fell out. They were the wrong size. They hit the air and broke into smaller notes. I left that room without stepping on any of the letters the blocks made. The hall narrowed around me into a throat again, then widened as if embarrassed. A short flight of steps carried me to a landing with two doors. One had paint peeling in long strips like tongues. The other had been repainted so recently, the brush hairs were still trapped in the surface. From behind the fresh paint came a sound, the sound of a hand underwater, knocking on a heavy lid. I took the peeling door. The paint tangled with my sleeve and left white on black cloth, like chalk, like rules, like a line I would have to read later on my own arm. Inside, a bathroom that remembered tin, a tub on feet, a sink with a lip like a trout, a mirror spotted with silver rot. From the drain, a thread of hair rose and fell in the draft I could not feel. It pulsed. 1, 2, 3. In the mirror, I saw the door behind me. I saw myself. I saw a second me, half a step behind my shoulder, not mine. I turned. No one. I faced the mirror again. The second me had stayed where it was. It lifted its hand when I did not. It flattened its mouth when I breathed. It waited for me to forget which one of us was supposed to imitate. I put my hand on the mirror. Cold met cold. The silver under the glass grew a mouth, small, round, ready to swallow. I leaned forward, lips near my own skin. "Eat the house," I whispered. "Not me." The mouth in the mirror shut. The drain burped. A small ring rose on a bubble and popped. It smelled like a coat left in rain and not brought to the fire fast enough. I wiped the mirror with the back of my wrist and left a clear oval. The second me did not move into it. The second me was bored. The house does not only try to scare, it tries to make you lazy. I walked back to the fresh painted door and put my ear to the wood. The knocking came again underwater, patient, sure. The kind of knocking a person does when they have been promised you will open eventually and they have time. Later, it said without words. I stepped back. No, the paint glistened. From somewhere below, the kettle in the silent parlor began to breathe again. Steam touched the thought of the ceiling. The corridor beyond narrowed into a waste, and then flared again without apology. At the end, a final door before the angle turned out of sight. This door was simple pine. No tricks in the grain. No old stain-like maps. A keyhole without a key. I looked through the keyhole. I did not put my eye to the metal. I held the torn map to it. On the paper, ink shifted to reveal a small square labeled window room. I moved the paper aside. I looked. Inside the window room, windows were stacked against the walls like paintings in a storage hall. Dozens, hundreds, frames of oak, pine, teak, glass of every kind. Some panes clear and honest, some smoky, some with the wrong stars, swimming inside them, looking for breath. In the center of the floor, a wooden table. On the table nails, the same 7. 7 again and again. Hook, circle, mouth, square, with outside, trident, ladder, eye. No door handle moved under my hand. The keyhole smelled faintly of salt and old varnish. I did not need to go in. I only needed to know it was there. I backed away one step at a time. On the floor, dust had kept a clean lane to the keyhole, and that lane ran across my boots and tried to go through my bones. The house pressed another door out of the wall behind me. It did it slow, hoping I would not notice I was being gifted. The new door had my name on it, not on a plaque, on the grain, grown there as if the tree had been told, while it lived, how to spell me. I put my forehead to the wood, the way you do to a child that is fevered. The door was not warm. It was waiting. "You have the wrong person," I said softly. "Find the one from the mirror. He is better at this." The door became offended. It swallowed my name back into itself, the way a scar softens when a person stops touching it. Behind me, where the hall bent, I heard another footstep. Not mine, not the house. A person who wore their weight like a coat they would rather take off. I turned. A man stood at the curve. He was about my age. His hair had been cut by someone who loved him once. He looked at me as if he had been trying for hours to decide whether I existed. His lips parted to say my name. He heard his own voice shape it and shut his mouth as if the sound tasted of iron. We stared at each other a long time. Finally he said, "Do not speak first." I nodded. He lifted his hand very slow and held up a nail between finger and thumb. "Ladder." I lifted mine, showed him the same. He exhaled so quiet I heard it with my ribs, not my ears. He stepped once into the light. I saw the dust on his shoulders. He stepped back out of it like a man who has learned to let his shadow walk ahead, so the house chews on that first. He pointed past me at the door that had had my name. He shook his head. He pointed at the bend behind him. He drew a small square in the air and left one side open. Square without side. "Sideways," I said. He nodded. We went together without making another sound. Because the house loves the taste of voices that know each other, and because the wrong windows were beginning to wake. As we passed the last window in the hall, the black river behind the glass pressed itself flat against the pane. A single white fish grew an eye and looked at us sideways. I did not look back. He did not either. At the bend, the house had placed a door that did not belong to any room. It belonged to outside. You could tell by the way the cold gathered around the crack and put its shoulders together. He set the ladder nail to the lintel. So did I. The wood accepted us the way a patient takes a cup from a nurse he almost trusts. We pushed. The door opened to a field of stars stitched wrong. Sky too close. Grass too sharp. The air did not taste like air. It tasted like the inside of a pocket watch that has been worn against skin for a lifetime. We closed the door. We did not need to go outside to know we would not breathe there. He made a writing motion with his hand. I shook my head. He nodded once. Then he did the thing brave people do that is worse than speaking. He turned his back to me to check the hall behind us. In that moment I saw the back of his neck. It had a scar in the shape of a small circle with a mouth. The house had written him already. He had let it once, or it had taken him once. He was still here. I touched his sleeve. He did not flinch. We walked together to the next turn. Behind us, the parlor fire breathed again. Ahead, the wrong windows clicked their teeth. On the wall at shoulder height, carved shallow and rubbed with the lampblack of a dozen hands, a small sentence that had not been there when I first came this way. Do not let the house choose who you are with. He saw it at the same time I did. We both stopped. He smiled. I did too. We took each other's ladder nail and put it in the other's pocket. The house did not laugh this time. It made the sound it makes when wood bends, and something deep below us turned over in its sleep and decided we were worth listening to. We kept moving. The next room had no windows. It had a table and 2 chairs, and a sheet of paper on the table with a sentence written in pencil. Write 1 true rule. We sat, we did not touch the pencil. We folded our hands like children in trouble. We waited together until the sentence softened and the pencil dulled in the house, bored by our refusal to feed it, took the paper back into the grain. Then, because I am not brave, but I am stubborn, I said the rule out loud to him and not to the room. Do not let it count for you. He nodded. He pointed to his chest. He made a small circle with his finger, a mouth in the skin, a number inside it. I understood. He took my torn map from my coat. He tore it once more, clean and neat, and handed me back a quarter. The ink bled like something that had been waiting to bleed twice. The room did not approve. Good, we stood. The hall made itself long again to punish us. We counted and did not let it count us. At the far end, a door waited with a small, clean peephole. I held the quarter map to it. Ink slid and wrote in that calm, slanting hand. Not yet. We both smiled without teeth. Now, I said, and we opened the door together. Chapter 3. The rules, etched in dust. The door opened like a throat clearing. Not wide, just enough. The air that came out was dry and bitter, like breath that had been held too long underground. We stepped through side by side. The hall behind us closed, not with wood, not with hinges, but with the silence of a thing removing itself from possibility. The room beyond was long and low, lit by a single lamp that had no flame. Its light was steady, but wrong. Like the color of a dream, you forget on waking. Dust lay thick over everything. The kind of dust that does not fall from neglect. The kind that grows out of the boards, rising like hair on the back of a neck. Every surface wore it. The floor, the shelves, the table in the center. But in the dust were words, hundreds of them, rules, some short, some entire sentences that had been written with fingers so long they dragged across the wood like claws. We walked slow, reading. Neither of us spoke. The dust whispered when we moved. It whispered like paper rubbed together, words folding into words. On the nearest table, do not walk where the dust is new. On the shelf, if you read a rule twice, it will read you back. On the wall, carved through the dust with something sharper than nails. The house is older than rules. The house only pretends. I bent to read the ones on the floorboards. Names, dates, each followed by a single line. E. Harlan minus 1922. Never eat from the third plate. W. Finch minus 1947. Trust the stare that counts you wrong. L. Porter, 1966. The sky is not outside. Do not try to leave through it. My companion crouched across from me, tracing with his finger, but not touching. His scar at the base of his neck shone pale in the lamp's wrong light. He pointed at one line that curved across 2 boards. If you are not alone, you are in danger. We both froze. His eyes met mine. He tilted his head, asking a question without words. I shook mine. No, not that one. I pointed to another near it. If you are alone, you are already lost. The 2 rules glared at each other from the boards, side by side, like mouths waiting to see which one we would feed. We stood. We left them unfed. Farther in, the dust rules grew stranger. Contradictions stacked. Some smudged, as if the house itself had erased them with a slow, patient hand. On the far wall, larger than the rest, written deep enough that the plaster had cracked, "The house does not punish those who break rules. It punishes those who believe in them." And beneath it, scrawled quick, almost desperate, "But rules are the only rope you have." I felt the words sink into me, heavy as stones tied to ankles. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to tear them off the wall. That was the trick, wasn't it? The house wanted me to want both. My companion reached into his coat and pulled out his quarter of the map. He pressed it against the wall where the words were deepest. The paper shivered. Lines bled into it. Not corridors, not rooms, but words, rules. When he pulled it away, the map had changed. Not wings, not halls, sentences, in ink. He showed me, "Do not take what the house offers you for free. Do not drink from a glass you did not set down yourself. If you must speak, speak to dust. It listens, but does not repeat." The map was becoming a book, or the house was reminding us that paper and dust are cousins. We moved deeper. The lamp's light followed, though the lamp never shifted. Its glow bent with us, like an obedient dog. At the far end of the room was a desk. On the desk, a single open ledger. Not dust, not carved. Ink on paper. Real, fresh. I leaned over. Names filled the first page. Dozens of them, neat and straight. Each name struck through with a line. At the bottom, space for 2 more. Blank. The second page was worse. Not names. Rules again. But these were written in a hand that looked familiar. My hand. Lines I had written on the back of the map. "Do not trust doors that multiply. Do not speak first. Count yourself." The ink was still wet. When I touched it, my fingertip came away black. The house was copying me. No, it was not copying. It was keeping. Behind me, the dust stirred. Not from our boots, from breath, from weight, from something moving across the boards. We turned together. The dust at the far end of the room was lifting, shaken off by invisible feet. A shape stepped forward, man-sized dust, clinging to its shoulders like ash on a burned coat. No face, no features, only absence where a head should be. It pointed at the ledger, then it pointed at us. The house wanted signatures. My companion's hand went to his ladder nail. Mine went to my quarter map. We shook our heads at each other in the same breath. No, not that. Not yet. The dust shape tilted, as though disappointed. Then it turned and walked back into the far dark, taking the dust with it. When it was gone, the rules on the walls had shifted again, smudged, rewritten. New sentences gleamed where the old had been erased. If the dust points, obey. If the dust leaves, follow. If the dust writes, add your name. We left before the house could decide which one to enforce. Back in the hall, the lamp went out. The dark pressed close, thick as cloth. But the dust clung to us, a thin film on our coats, and it glowed faint in its own light, like chalk carried from a blackboard, like rules carried whether we wanted them or not. Somewhere deeper, the ticking began again, not steady now, faster, hungry. The house was keeping count, and it had just added us to its ledger. Chapter 4. The Stair That Splits People. The stair waited where no stair should have been. At the end of the hall, where the dust still clung to our coats like glowing fingerprints, the wall had peeled itself apart. Wood bent outward into steps, not built, grown. Each tread pressed forward like the tongue of a beast tasting air. We stood at the bottom. The lamplight we had carried from the dust room was gone. Only the faint shimmer of powder on our sleeves gave shape to the wood. The stair wanted us. You could feel it. A pull, not of gravity, but of suggestion, like an open mouth begging for breath. My companion leaned forward, testing the first step with his boot. The board creaked, as though bones inside it shifted. The sound rippled up the stair in a wave, each tread groaning in turn, until the top what little of it we could see side open. Sideways, he whispered. The first word I'd heard him speak. His voice was rough, but certain, like someone who'd been burned before. We climbed. 10 steps up, the house began to cheat. The boards grew slick, though there was no water. My soul slid half an inch sideways. The rail to my left bent away as I reached for it, wood softening under my grip, like flesh pretending to be oak. At 15, the stair widened. Not enough to look natural, just enough for 2 paths. One bending left, one bending right. Both led upward. Both groaned with equal hunger. I looked at him. He looked at me. His scars shone pale at his throat. We didn't speak. The house was listening too close. We kept to the middle, pressing our boots down where the steps tried to split apart. The boards trembled, fighting to peel sideways, but we counted together in silence. 17, 18, 19. The stair gave up for now. At 30, the house tried harder. The boards began to twist. The grain of the wood no longer ran lengthwise. It spiraled. Each step turned itself a few degrees, until the whole stair wound like the inside of a shell. My stomach churned. Looking up, the top had rotated out of sight. Looking down, the bottom blurred, steps folding over each other like pages in a wet book. We pressed on. The dust on our coats glowed faint, leaving streaks where our arms brushed the wall. I realized that glow was the only way to know which way was up. Without it, the stair could have rolled us over like dice until we walked headfirst into nothing. At 40, it split us. Not with wood, with thought. One moment he was climbing a step ahead of me, back bent, breath shallow. The next, he was gone. The stair had not turned. The boards had not broken. But the dust line ahead was missing. I stopped. I counted backward. 40, 39, 38. My boots carried me down, but the boards disagreed. Each step down lifted me higher. The stair was folding distance, rewriting numbers. I was stuck in a sum that didn't add up. From somewhere to my left, too far, too close, I heard him. Sideways, he called. Not a whisper, a demand. I pressed my palm flat against the wall. The wood was warm, damp. It pulsed faint, like the map had. I slid my hand along sideways, refusing the steps. The stair bucked. The boards groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling like old flour. But the glow on my sleeve smeared across the wall, a chalk line made by skin, and a moment later, he was there again. 2 steps above me, pale, sweat slick on his jaw. He nodded once, sharp. We kept climbing. At 50, the stairs showed us its trick. A landing, square, empty, safe-looking, 3 doors, each with the same brass handle, the same pale grain. Behind each door, the faint whisper of breath. We knew the game. The stair hadn't carried us to a landing. It had carved a mouth in the middle of itself. Whichever door we chose would not matter. The house wanted us to believe choice was a mercy. He lifted his ladder nail. I took mine out too. Together we pressed them into the center of the landing, where the dust had not yet claimed. The wood hissed. Symbols flared tiny, sharp, bright. The stair recoiled. The doors vanished. The landing shrank back into steps. We climbed. At 70, the stair grew tired of pretending. It split, clean, a fork. One flight leading left into dark. One leading right into darker. And this time, no middle to press, only choice. The dust on my coat shimmered, uncertain. It drifted toward the left, then the right, as if the house itself was undecided. The rules from the dust room gnawed in my skull. If you are not alone, you are in danger. If you are alone, you are already lost. He touched his scar. I touched my pocket, where the torn map lay. Neither of us wanted to be counted, so we did the only thing left. We broke the stairs rule. We sat on the split, boots planted, backs pressed to each other, refusing. The house hated that. The boards shuddered. The rail bent like a bowstring. The fork tried to grow wider, to peel us apart by force, but we stayed, back to back. breath to breath, until the stair groaned in frustration and sealed itself. The fork collapsed into a single climb. We rose. At 90, the stair stopped, not with a landing, with a mirror. Tall, wide, set into the wall where a door should have been. The glass was clean, too clean. It reflected not us, but two other figures, our shapes, our faces, but wrong. They were climbing down. Their mouths moved in silence, saying words we could not hear. Their hands were empty, no nails, no maps. They looked relieved, as if they were leaving the house behind. I lifted my hand. My reflection did not. It stared at me with hunger. It wanted me to believe the way down was real. He spat on the glass. The spit ran down like mercury, cutting a line between us and them. The mirror flickered. For an instant, the figures' faces split open like wood under too much weight. Then the glass cracked. We pushed through. At the top, the stair delivered us into a hall that was not a hall. Narrow, endless. Doors on both sides, evenly spaced, stretching until the dark bent them out of sight. Each handle gleamed like a star. Behind us, the stair side shut. No going back. We stood side by side, breath ragged, dust glowing faint around us. He touched my shoulder, not comfort, not warning, just to prove we were still two. The hall waited, the doors listened, and somewhere behind the wood, something with too many hands was already counting. Chapter 5. The Portraits That Watch. The hall stretched forever, doors repeating, brass handles like teeth in a grin too wide for a human face. We walked slow, not because we wanted to be, because the house had made speed impossible. Every step forward took longer than the last, as if the air was thickening into syrup. The dust on our coats still glowed faint. That was our rope, our proof that we were not dissolving into the wood. At 50 steps, the first portrait appeared, hung between two doors, crooked in its frame, canvas cracked with age. The subject was a woman, not old, not young, her face sharp at the cheekbones, soft at the mouth. She wore a dress that had never belonged to this century. Her eyes followed us, not the way portraits do, the way living things do, pupils shifting, focus tightening, watching for weakness. I stared too long. The paint quivered. Her lips parted as though to speak. My companion pulled my sleeve, hard, and I turned away. When I looked back, her mouth was closed, but the corner of the frame was wet, as if she'd exhaled. We kept moving. Every 20 paces, another portrait. Each new face leaned closer to recognition. A neighbor, a teacher. A man I'd passed in a train station once and never thought about again. The house was mining memory. It was painting with my own mind. At 100 steps, the portraits began to change mid-look. I would glance, see a stranger. Look back, see my father's smile, wrong in the eyes. Look again, and the canvas showed me. Not exact. Off by a detail, mole missing, an ear too high. Enough to remind me that memory is clay, and the house was the hand. We passed one that showed the two of us together, side by side, dust glowing on our coats, just as we were now. But behind us in the painting, a third figure, tall, shadowed, face hidden. It stood with one hand on each of our shoulders like a father proud of his children. Neither of us looked too long. Some truths you survive only by not learning. Halfway down the hall, the portraits thickened, 2 between every door, 3. Soon the walls were crowded, frame pressed against frame, canvas breathing against canvas. Their eyes glittered in the dim light, 1,000 gazes threading into our skin. The air smelled of oil paint and turpentine. Old, sharp, hungry. Every breath tasted like pigment on the tongue. The house wanted us to choose, to stop, to look, to recognize ourselves in the wrong place, and say, yes, that's me. Recognition is consent. Consent is ownership. We walked faster, fighting the drag of the thickening air. The portraits hissed. Not all at once. One here, one there. Small leaks of canvas air, escaping frames. Teeth clicking behind lips that were only brushstrokes a moment ago. The sound built, a chorus of whispers, hisses, sighs. My name floated from one frame, his name from another. Then the names we hadn't spoken yet, the names we would take if we left as someone else. He touched his scar. I gripped my quarter map. We pushed forward. At last the hall narrowed, forcing us shoulder to shoulder. The portraits leaned closer, frames jutting from the walls like jaws. Their eyes bulged, mouths gaped, canvas lips peeled open, showing painted teeth wet with real spit. One lunged. The frame cracked, canvas tearing as a face pushed free, oil and flesh mixed. Its hand shot out 5 fingers made of brushstrokes. They smeared when they touched my arm, leaving streaks of color that burned. I slammed my ladder nail into the wall. The wood hissed. The portrait shrieked without a throat. Paint boiled off it, dripping to the floor in clumps that twitched before going still. The others pulled back, snarling, their eyes all rolled white at once, like animals sensing a predator. The house did not like when we fought its art, but it was listening, learning. The hall spat us out into a gallery, high ceiling, long benches, dozens of portraits lining the walls, but these were huge. Floor to ceiling, each showed a single figure, posed like royalty. Crowns, scepters, robes, none of them human. Faces too long, limbs bent wrong, jaws split where no jaw should split, and every one of them bore a plaque. The plaques had names, not titles, not family lines, our names, dozens of versions. Spelled wrong, but close, half complete, full future. Names we had not yet earned. Names we had not yet lost. On the far wall hung the largest portrait. Its subject was unfinished, the background painted, the throne rendered in detail, but the figure was only sketched in charcoal. Shoulders, arms, a crown shape waiting. The plaque beneath was blank, waiting. The air shivered, the canvases inhaled as one. Every painted chest swelled, every painted mouth opened, not to hiss, to sing. The song was low, endless, a drone of oil and breath. It vibrated the boards underfoot. The blank portrait's outline darkened, charcoal lines thickening, filling in. The figure was painting itself with sound. He grabbed my wrist, pulled me back. We stumbled toward the door we'd entered, but the gallery had shifted. No door, only canvas. Hundreds of eyes tracking us as the drone built louder, louder. I fumbled for the map. It pulsed, lines rearranged, not doors, not corridors. A single sentence in ink. If the portraits sing, close your eyes and let dust lead. The glow on our coats flared. The dust we had carried from the ledger room still clung to us, faint but alive. It lifted from the fabric, a cloud of chalk motes, swirling ahead, a path. I grabbed his hand. We shut our eyes and followed the dust, feet pounding across boards that shook like drumskins under the portrait's song. Hands brushed frames that were wet with spit and paint. Breath pulled at our ears, hot and rancid. We ran blind until the boards leveled and the air cooled. The drone cut off. Silence slammed the room like a lid. When we opened our eyes, the gallery was gone. We stood in a narrow hall. No portraits, no song, only a single door at the end. Plain wood, a crack of light beneath it. He dropped my hand. We both exhaled, shuddering. My sleeve still burned where the portrait had touched me. The paint stain pulsed faint under my skin, like something had routed there. I did not tell him. He did not ask. The house had given us both new scars and some debts you do not speak aloud. We walked toward the door. Behind us, from the place where the gallery had been, a single voice hummed on, low, patient, waiting. Chapter 6. The library that reads you. The plain wooden door opened on its own, not with a creak, with a sigh, like a lung that had been waiting for us. The room beyond stretched far longer than the house should have allowed. Shelves climbed the walls to a ceiling lost in shadow. Books, hundreds, thousands, stacked and pressed, spines cracked, pages swollen with age. The air was thick with dust and ink, but not stale. Alive, breathing. We stepped inside. The door shut behind us. No handle on this side. The silence was heavier than any I'd felt yet. Not absence of sound, a pressure, like every page was listening, waiting to be turned. My companion touched his scar and nodded toward the nearest shelf. I pulled a book at random. The leather cover was soft, too soft, like skin left in the sun. When I opened it, the pages whispered not from the turn, from the words. They moved as my eyes moved, sliding into place, rearranging themselves. The first line, "You are standing in the library." I shut it at once. The book twitched in my hands, eager to keep speaking. I slid it back on the shelf. The moment it touched wood, a second book 3 rows up fell out, landing at our feet. Open, pages fluttering. Words scrawled themselves across it, even as we looked. "Do not close me again. I will tell the truth if you let me breathe." I bent low. The letters rearranged as fast as thought, but I caught one sentence before it changed. "The house writes in you the way it writes in me." I snapped it shut. This time I didn't return it. I carried it. We moved deeper. The shelves leaned, not from age, from attention. Books tilted, straining to see us. Some covers flexed, leather bending with slow, hungry breath. Halfway down the first aisle, we found a table. On it sat a single quill, black as crow feather, tip sharp as a needle. Beside it, a book bound in plain cloth. The cover bore no title. It opened itself as we drew near, blank pages, except no, not blank. Faint grooves pressed deep into the paper, invisible unless the light hit right. Indentations of letters. Someone had written here, but the ink had been drunk by the page. I touched the groove. Words spilled into my head like whispers through a wall, not sound, meaning right, only what you are willing to lose. The quill rattled. The point scratched at the air, desperate. Ink bled up its shaft from nowhere. It wanted to be fed. My companion shoved the book shut and pushed it off the table. The thud echoed too long, too loud, as if the sound had fallen down a shaft instead of landing on floorboards. From the shelves above, a dozen other books rattled their spines in protest. Dust sifted down like fine ash. The library was angry. We moved on. The further we went, the more personal the shelves became. At first the titles were generic. Histories, accounts, ledgers. Then they shifted. Memories of 1947, the faces I saw in sleep, the rules that did not work. Then, our names, row after row, books bearing my name, my companions, sometimes both. The spines gleamed with gold leaf, some thick as Bibles, some thin as notebooks. I pulled one with my name. My hand trembled. The book trembled back. When I opened it, the first page was written in my hand. Not neat, not careful. Scrawled, rushed, like someone desperate to get it down before forgetting. "You entered the library. You found this book. You opened it. You read these lines." The words darkened as I looked, ink thickening. The page turned itself. The next was already written. "Now you will keep reading, because you must know how it ends." I slammed it shut, but my name on the spine pulsed faint, as though the book was still speaking through skin. I shoved it back on the shelf. Another fell, another opened. The first line, "When you put the book away," the next fell. I left it where it lay. The library chuckled, not out loud. In the bones, in the boards, a vibration like laughter that had been smothered. We came to a stair at the center of the room, not wood. Books stacked, bound together with wire and glue, rising in a spiral. Pages spilled from gaps, fluttering like tongues. At the top, a balcony ringed the library. More shelves, shadows between them thicker than shadows should be. But from there, we could see the shape of the library hall. It was not rectangular, not square, circular. A ring of shelves turning endlessly inward, and at the very heart, a pit. No railing around it, just a yawning mouth in the floor, wider than the stair, deeper than sight. Books leaned over its lip like mourners at a grave, and from within rose the sound of pages turning, slow, endless, the sound of reading that had never stopped. We circled it, careful not to look too long into the pit. My companion touched my sleeve, pointed to the shelves across there. In the deepest shadow, a book glowed faint, not gold, not silver, dust-light, like the glow on our coats. We edged around. The pit breathed as we passed. Cold climbed our ankles like water. Something brushed the edge of my boot, though nothing was there. At last, we reached it. The glowing book was slim, bound in plain black cloth. No title, no mark. But as I reached for it, letters burned across the cover in fresh light. Rule book. I touched it. It burned, not heat. Recognition. The book knew me. It wanted me. I opened it. Inside, blank. No, not blank. Waiting. Pages shivered, eager for ink. The quill we had left behind rattled across the floor toward us. It dragged itself like a crawling insect, leaving a black smear behind. It leaped, point first, into my hand. The ink bled onto my fingers, black veins racing up my wrist. I dropped it. It clattered, then stilled, but the veins remained. Thin, faint, pulsing. On the open page, words appeared in my handwriting. Do not write here again. The page turned itself. Another line formed. You already have. The pit below rustled. Not pages now. Breath. Breath dragging air in and out, deep as the lungs of the earth. We backed away, the book still open in my hand. I tried to shut it. It refused. The covers locked rigid, frozen wide. The pit sighed. 1,000 voices whispered together from the pages leaning over its lip. We have read you. The balcony shook. Books toppled, raining down like broken teeth. The pit exhaled. Cold blasted up, carrying the smell of wet paper and salt. We ran, down the book stair, slipping on pages that writhed like fish. Shelves buckled, as if hands inside were pushing, desperate to be free. The quill skittered after us, scratching the floor with my name, again and again. We reached the door. It was locked. No handle, no keyhole, just wood. My companion pulled his ladder nail. I slammed my quarter map against the grain. Ink bled across it, drawing a door where none was. The wood split. We fell through. The library roared behind us, shelves crashing, books screaming in paper voices. The door slammed shut. Silence again. But in my hand, the black book still lay open. On the first page, in my own writing, the house has begun to read you aloud. Chapter 7. The Banquet of Shadows. The black book pulsed in my hand, not with heartbeat, with hunger. Its open pages quivered like lips waiting to be fed. We didn't feed it. We didn't look at it. We shoved it into my coat and let it gnaw there in silence. The corridor beyond the library stretched long and wide, too wide. Our footsteps echoed as if we were walking in a cathedral. The ceiling vanished into dark rafters, swallowed by shadow. Ahead, light, warm, golden, flickering. Not the sick light of the library's lamp. Candlelight. Dozens of flames swaying together. A promise. A lure. We reached double doors tall enough for giants. They swung open without touch. Beyond lay the banquet hall. It was immense. A single table ran the length of the room. Wood black as pitch, polished to a mirror. On it lay platters of food that steamed, though no one touched them. Roast meats, dripping fat. Loaves golden crusted. Bowls of fruit gleaming with impossible color. Cheeses sweating pale oil. Cakes layered high with sugar and cream. Goblets brimming with red, richer than wine. The smell hit like a fist. Savory, sweet, salt and spice, and rot beneath it all. Every chair at the table was full, but not with people, with shadows, shapes slouched and bent, outlines loose, edges bleeding into candlelight. Some tall, some small, some twisted sideways. They moved, lifted forks, raised cups, but their hands never touched the food. The food fed itself to them. Slices of meat floated upward, cups tilted on their own. Bread tore, crumbs scattering, though no fingers pressed. We stood in the doorway. None of the shadows looked at us. They were too busy eating. Then, at once, they stopped. Every chair turned. Every shadow head bent in our direction. 100 eyeless faces staring. The table groaned. Plates rattled. Knives quivered. One chair at the center slid back, empty, waiting. The house was offering us a seat. My companion touched his scar. I gripped the black book through my coat. We didn't move. The silence stretched. The shadows leaned closer. One by one, they lifted their forks. Not to the food, to us. Hundreds of tines glittering in candlelight, all pointed down the hall. The air thickened. The smell rotted. The meats sagged gray beneath the skin. The fruit split, spilling worms. The cakes slumped like corpses. The wine bubbled thick and black. The shadows hissed, low, endless, hungry. The empty chair scraped backward again, insistent. I opened the black book. Words scrolled themselves across the page in my hand. Do not eat, do not drink, do not sit. The ink bled, spreading. Another line appeared. If you refuse, they will feed on refusal. The shadows hissed louder. The food writhed. Meat bones bent. Fruit spat seeds, like teeth. Cakes bled sugar like pus. My companion slammed his ladder nail into the floor. The boards shrieked. The shadows flinched. Every fork bent sideways with a scream of metal. The banquet groaned, furious. The table buckled, with splintering as though a beast beneath it shifted. Platters spilled. Food slithered off the edges, crawling like insects, pooling on the floor and dragging themselves toward us. We ran. Chairs toppled. Shadows screamed. Knives shot through the air, clanging off stone. The door slammed shut behind us. Silence. But in my coat, the black book burned hot. When I pulled it free, new words had written themselves. You have refused the banquet. Now it will refuse you. Hunger follows. We staggered down the corridor. The air was colder. The boards groaned under our weight. My stomach cramped, though I had eaten nothing. My companion's face hollowed, cheekbones sharper, eyes darker. The house had put hunger inside us. At the next bend we found another door, smaller, plain. It opened into a pantry. Shelves lined the walls. Empty jars, baskets of husks, hooks where meat had hung, all bare, all waiting. On the floor, a single bowl. In it lay a crust of bread, gray with mold. My mouth watered, my chest ached. The hunger was not mine, it was the banquet's, planted like a seed. The black book shivered. New words bled across the page. Eat it, and the hunger is not yours. Refuse, and the hunger is forever. I dropped the book. It hit the floor, pages snapping shut. The crust twitched. Worms wriggled in its mold. He kicked the bowl across the room. It shattered. The crust split, spilling black seeds that skittered into the cracks between boards. The house inhaled through the walls, not breath, disappointment. The hunger remained, but it was ours now, not the banquet's. That was better. Maybe. We left the pantry. The corridor darkened behind us, doors vanishing into shadow. Ahead, another stair. Narrow, steep, climbing into silence. We climbed, step by step, stomachs aching, the black book heavy in my coat, hot as fever. At the top, another hall, silent, still, lined with closed doors. Everyone bore a painted number. Every number was wrong. 1, 1, 1, 1, all of them. The house was done offering. Now, it was counting us again. and it had decided there was only one. Chapter 8. The Sky in the Basement. The hall of numbered doors ended in a blank wall. No seam, no handle, no exit. Only numbers painted thick and wet, dripping down the wood. Every number said the same thing. 1, 1, 1. The paint gleamed like blood under candlelight. I touched it with one finger. It was not paint. It was ink. The same ink that wrote in the black book. The wall pulsed. Not with breath, with gravity. Pulling, insisting. My companion pressed his ladder nail to the boards. They bent. The wood sagged like flesh, and then split. The wall opened downward. Not a door, a stair. Narrow, steep, leading into dark. The hunger in my stomach twisted. It pulled me toward the descent. Not food, not drink. Something deeper. A promise of filling the emptiness with something worse than bread. We went down. The air thickened as we descended. Not damp, like cellars. Not stale like basements. This was heavy, pressed against the chest, like standing under water too deep to rise. Steps creaked, boards sagged. Each tread groaned as though our weight was more than it could bear. Dust on our coats dimmed, faint glow flickering like stars dying in fog. At 50 steps, the walls fell away. The stair hung in open dark. Below us, space stretched vast, wider than the house should contain. Above us, the stair we had descended vanished into shadow. We climbed down into nowhere. The only sound was the throb of blood in my ears and the soft scrape of our boots. At last the stair ended, not in floorboards, in grass. We stood in a field. Tall grass bent and swayed, though there was no wind. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of earth and iron. Overhead, sky, not basement beams, not ceiling, a dome of stars, but not ours. Too many, too close, too sharp. They pulsed faint, in rhythm with the hunger twisting inside me. The constellations shifted as we watched. Lines bent, stars sliding across the heavens like beads on a string. Shapes formed and unformed eyes, teeth, open hands. Every time I blinked, the stars rearranged, trying on new patterns like masks. We were not beneath the house. We were inside something larger, something that had stolen sky for itself. My companion knelt, ran a hand through the grass. His fingers came up wet, not with dew, with black ink. The same ink from the banquet, the same ink from the book. The ground itself was writing. We were walking on pages. A wind rose. It blew across the grass, bending it all in one direction. Not random, purposeful, leading us. We followed. What else could we do? The grass thinned, parting into a path. At its end stood a tree. Tall, thin, branches bare, bark white as bone. Its roots spread wide across the ink-soaked ground, drinking. From its branches hung ropes. Not many, 7, each tied into a noose. Each, swaying though, the air was still. Beneath each noose lay a shadow. Shadows shaped like people. They shifted faint, restless, as though they waited for their rope to descend. As we watched, one rope dipped lower, brushing against the ground. The shadow beneath it shivered, rose, stretched upward. The noose slid around its neck like an old friend. The rope tightened. The shadow went still. A star above flared bright, then winked out, gone. The hunger inside me twisted sharp. It wanted what the shadow had taken, the filling, the belonging, the end. I bit my tongue until blood filled my mouth. Iron, real, mine. The trees swayed, though there was no wind. Another rope dipped, another shadow stirred. My companion grabbed my sleeve, pulled me back. We stumbled away, grass tearing, ink splattering our boots. The ropes creaked, the shadows hissed. The stars overhead rearranged, spelling words I did not want to know. We ran. The field stretched endless. Every direction the same grass, ink, sky. But the wind shifted, pushing us toward a hill. Small, round, rising from the plain like a blister. At its top stood a door, not in a wall. Standing alone, frame sunk into earth, leaning slightly, wood swollen with age, handle tarnished. But behind it, no wall, no house, only more sky. The hunger pulled. The book in my coat pulsed. Words burned into its page without my hand. Open it. The stars are yours. We didn't. We circled the hill instead, slow, careful. The door shivered. The handle rattled, desperate. Behind it, stars pressed close, crowding, eager to pour through. At the back of the hill, we found a hatch, iron, sunken into the ground. No handle, only a small symbol etched into its surface, the ladder. We pressed our nails to it. The hatch groaned. It opened below dark. A smell of stone and salt. A place that was not sky. A place the stars could not reach. We climbed down. The hatch shut above us. The stars screamed, their voices high and thin, like glass breaking. Then silence. We stood in a tunnel of stone, rough and wet. The hunger eased, fading to a dull ache. The book cooled. The stars were gone, but the tunnel breathed, not with air, with time, a pulse slow and deep, each beat shaking the stone. And ahead, in the dark, something heavy shifted, listening, waiting. Chapter 9. The hallway that never ends. The tunnel sloped upward until the stone thinned into plaster. Moisture faded. The scent of earth gave way to dust and varnish. The breathing in the walls quieted, but it did not stop. It never stops. We reached a door, plain, paint peeling. Its knob cold enough to numb my palm. When I turned it, the door swung open onto a hallway. Not long, not short, just a hall. But when we stepped in, the hall stretched. At first it was a trick of distance. The far wall pulled away, receding into shadow. I blinked. It receded again. Boards creaked underfoot, not with age, but with growth. We walked. Our steps echoed too long. The ceiling arched higher. The lamps on the walls multiplied, flickering, swaying, spaced wider with every 20 paces. After 50 steps, we turned back. The door we'd come through was gone. Only more hall, stretching behind, stretching ahead. My companion pulled his ladder nail from his coat. He pressed it into the wall. The wood hissed, marked. We walked on. 30 steps later, he pressed again. The mark flared behind us, not where he'd cut it. The house had moved it, dragging it forward like a cruel joke. The hall was folding us into itself. The hunger from the banquet gnawed again. My stomach cramped, dry and sharp. My throat burned with thirst, though I'd drunk nothing since the storm. The house wanted us weak before it asked its question. We stopped. We counted. Not aloud. Never aloud. Inside, in rhythm with our breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 10, the lamps dimmed. At 20, the walls sighed, boards bowing outward as though swollen with meat. At 30, a door appeared. We froze. The door was new, not painted, not varnished. Raw wood, pale, wet with sap. It bled onto the floor in sticky drops. A sign was nailed above the frame, crude, splintered, carved with a blunt blade. Exit. The letters leaned, crooked, childlike. I gripped my quarter of the map. Ink bled across it, writing a single word beneath the square. Lie. We did not open it. The door sagged, insulted. It melted into the wall like fat under flame. The hall swallowed it whole. We kept walking. The lamps thinned. Their flames shrank until the dark pressed close. From ahead came a sound. At first a whisper, then clearer. Footsteps. Not ours. Light. Quick. Coming closer. We stopped. The footsteps did not. Out of the dark, a figure emerged. Small, child-size. A boy, barefoot, shirt torn at the collar. His eyes glowed faint as the dust on our coats. He stopped 3 paces away. His mouth opened. My name fell out, not spoken, dropped, like a pebble into water. The sound rippled in the boards beneath us. I shook my head. No. The boy tilted his head. He opened his mouth again. This time my companion's name. It fell heavier, cracking the floorboards. The map pulsed in my pocket. Words scrawled themselves across the page. The hall borrows voices. Do not take them back. The boy smiled, sharp and wrong. His mouth tore wider, not skin tearing. Paper. The sound of parchment ripping. He dropped another word. Not our names. A rule. Count yourself. The air throbbed. The hall shuddered. Our own words were being used against us. My companion stepped forward, lifted his ladder nail, and pressed it to the boy's chest. The boy sagged, dissolved into dust that glowed faint, and sank into the boards. The hall absorbed it. The lamps flared. The hunger eased a fraction. But the boards whispered as we walked on. Whispered in the boy's voice, repeating rules we had written, testing us, mocking us. We walked for hours, or minutes, or years. Time was soft here. It bent, stretched, snapped. We learned not to trust our legs, only the beat of our hearts. Every 100 steps, another door appeared, each with a sign, exit, outside, home, always crooked, always carved by the same blunt blade. We ignored them all. Every time we passed, the signs rotted into splinters. The wood melted. The doors sighed away. The hall hated our refusal. It hissed. It warped. The lamps burst one by one, glass raining down, sparks hissing out, until we walked in full dark, and then light, a glow ahead. Not lamps, not fire. Moonlight, cold, silver, pouring from a single window at the end of the hall. We approached. The hunger clenched sharp. Our throats ached. Our eyes watered. The window showed a night sky. Not the false sky from the basement. Not the stars that rearranged themselves. This was ours. Moon, cloud, constellations I remembered from childhood. I almost wept. I almost reached for the latch. But the black book in my coat writhed. Its pages cracked open, writing scrawling itself without my hand. If the hall shows you a sky you know, close your eyes. It is the last lie before the trap. My companion covered the window with his coat. The light dimmed. The hunger loosened. The sky faded, leaving only plaster and wood. We stood in dark again, but now the hall was silent. No hiss, no groan, beaten, for now. At last, another door. Plain, unmarked, no crooked sign, no carved letters. We pressed our nails to the lintel. The wood accepted. The house yielded. We opened it. Beyond lay a stair, wider than any before. Steps carpeted red, worn down the middle by centuries of feet. A grand stair, rising into dark. The hall sighed behind us. It did not vanish. It waited. Because hallways do not end. They only pause. We climbed. Chapter 10. The Feast of Mirrors. The grand stair climbed into dark that smelled of polish and dust. Its carpet was red, worn thin down the center, edges still rich as dried blood. Our boots left no prints, though the nap bent beneath them as if it remembered every footstep that had ever climbed. At the top, a landing spread wide. 3 doors waited. Each door bore no handle, no hinge, no keyhole, only glass. Full-length panes, set into the wood, shining faint in the dark. Mirrors. We approached the first. The glass rippled, not reflection. Water. It showed the stair we had just climbed, but no us upon it. Only shadows. Hundreds of them, shoulder to shoulder, filling the steps from top to bottom. Each shadow swayed faint, as if breathing. One lifted its head, though faceless, it found us. The ripple stilled. The shadow pressed close to the glass. A hand-shaped absence smeared across the pane, leaving streaks that hissed. My companion pulled me back. The glass shivered. The door sighed. The stare within the mirror swallowed the shadows whole. The house had shown us what followed. We moved to the second. This one reflected us, but wrong. Our shapes stood taller, thinner, jaws too long, eyes wide and black. Our dust light glowed brighter, etched into our skin like constellations. The reflections moved as we did. Then one paused. When I raised my hand, my mirrored self did not. It smiled instead, thin, hungry. My companion hissed and slammed his ladder nail into the frame. The glass cracked. The reflections snarled soundlessly, then shattered into 1,000 shards. The door behind dissolved into wood again. The house had shown us what we might become. The third mirror waited. Its glass was dim, almost gray, as though fogged with age. At first I saw nothing, then faint outlines, blurred, smeared, faces, crowds of them, too many to count. They pressed against the other side of the glass like flies against a window. Mouths opened, no sound, only the shape of words, names, not mine, not his, others, dozens, hundreds. The house's past guests, begging through silence. One face shoved closer, forehead flattening against the pane. Her eyes were wide, too wide, white spilling where it should not. Her mouth stretched too far. The fog cleared for just a moment, and I saw it clearly. My mother, not her, but her face, borrowed, painted in fog, begging. The hunger in my stomach clenched. Not for food, for recognition, for family, for safety. The house knew where to aim. I reached. My fingers brushed cold glass. The face leaned closer. Her mouth formed a word, home. The glass burned. Pain lanced through my hand. I snatched it back. My palm was blistered, skin raised in the shape of letters, not words. Rules. Do not let the house feed on your memories. The mirror darkened, fog folding back into itself. The faces blurred, then vanished. The glass cracked once down the center, splitting the crowd forever. The house had shown us what we longed for. When the mirrors were gone, the landing opened. A new door waited, plain wood, no glass. We pushed it together. Inside lay a dining room smaller than the banquet hall, but colder. A round table sat at the center. Upon it, not food, mirrors. Dozens of hand mirrors, polished silver, propped in a ring, all turned inward. We saw ourselves from every angle. Chins, jaws, eyes, scars. Every detail repeated, multiplied, but not true. Each reflection whispered as we watched. Their mouths moved in silence, shaping rules we hadn't spoken, shaping lies we hadn't believed. One reflection leaned closer. Its lips moved against the silver. I read them. Sit, eat, be full. Another whispered. You are alone here. He is gone. Another. The house will end when you believe it. The whispers layered, louder, faster. The mirrors fogged with breath, though none of them were alive. Dozens of mouths spoke until the table roared. My companion covered his ears. The sound pressed in any way, vibrating bone. I grabbed the black book from my coat. Pages fluttered open, blank, no longer. They filled with ink, pouring down like rain, scribbles racing faster than I could read. Do not break the mirrors. Do not listen to them. Do not believe silence is safer. I snapped the book shut. The ink bled through the cover, searing my palm. The mirrors screamed. A single voice, shrill, sharp, splitting the room. Every reflection leaned at once, faces pressed against silver, teeth gritted, and then they cracked. All at once, glass splintered, shards raining onto the table, onto the floor. Silence fell. Only one mirror remained unbroken, at the center of the table. Round, small, polished. It showed not me, not him, not us. The house, from above. Endless wings, halls, roofs, stacked like organs in a body, too large for bone. A shape, not of architecture, but of hunger given walls, and on its steps, a figure. The woman from the wardrobe mirror, umbrella of bruises, map between her fingers. still waiting, still smiling. The mirror fogged, her face blurred. The glass cracked, it shattered. The table was empty. The room was still. The door ahead groaned open. We stepped through. Behind us, the shards whispered. Not words, not rules. Only numbers. Counting, always counting. Chapter 11. The Clockwork Heart. The corridor beyond the Feast of Mirrors was narrow, too narrow for comfort. The walls pulsed faint, pressing inward with each step. Boards creaked like ribs. Air wheezed like breath. We were walking inside the body of something pretending to be a house. The black book burned in my coat. Pages rattled against my chest, straining. It wanted to be opened. It wanted to speak. I pressed it flat. Not yet. The hall ended in an archway. Beyond it, light. Not candlelight. Not lamp. Not sky. Pale and steady. Cold as bone. We entered a chamber, round, vast. Walls lined with gears taller than men, teeth grinding, turning slow. Cogs meshed with cogs, wheels within wheels, bronze and iron slick with oil that dripped down the walls. Chains rattled above, vanishing into dark. Pistons hissed. The whole chamber moved in rhythm. Tick, tick, tick. We had found it. The house's heart. At the center of the floor lay the pendulum. Not a rod, not a bob, but a mass of black iron, shaped like a bell, swinging slow over a pit. Each swing shook the boards. Each swing counted. Around the pit, 7 figures knelt. Not alive, not dead. Shapes wrapped in rags, faces hidden, hands pressed flat to the boards. They bowed in rhythm to the pendulum's swing. Their bodies creaked like wood. Their heads jerked like clock hands. One raised its head as we entered. No face beneath the hood, only a dial. White enamel, black numbers. 2 hands, ticking. The figure was a clock. It opened its mouth. The dial inside ticked once. The pendulum shuddered. The room groaned. The house had priests, and they were time itself. My companion gripped his ladder nail. I clutched the quarter map. The black book thrashed. Ink bled through my coat, staining my shirt, spreading like veins. On the floorboards beneath the pendulum, words burned in oil. The house does not end. The house resets. The pendulum swung harder. Tick, tick. The figures bowed deeper. Every bow made the gears grind faster. Chains clattered overhead. The whole room turned. We staggered, bracing against the wall. The heart was winding itself. One of the clock priests stood. It shuffled toward us, robes dragging. The dial on its face spun. The hands pointed to 12. It spoke in the voice of grinding gears. "You are counted." I shook my head. No. It lifted a finger of iron, pointed at me, then at him. 2. The pendulum froze mid-swing. The chamber went silent. The figures rose as one. Dials worry. Numbers spun. Hands pointed. 1, 2, 1, 2. They argued, not with words, with time. Their dials ticked against each other, clashing. The gears in the walls screamed. Chains snapped overhead. Sparks rained. The heart was breaking its own count. The black book tore open in my coat. Pages flapped. Ink spilled across the floor, seeping between boards, racing toward the pendulum. Words scrawled themselves in oil. "Count yourselves." I dropped to my knees. I carved numbers into the boards with my nail. 1, 2. He did the same. 2 marks. 2 scars in the wood. The pendulum groaned. It swung again. Tick, tick. The room steadied. The priests froze. Their dials spun wild. Hands snapping. Glass cracking. One shattered. Pieces rained to the floor. Gears spilling from its hood. The others wailed. Clocks screaming. Mouths of enamel splitting wide. The house hated our defiance, but it could not deny it. We had counted ourselves. The gears in the walls slowed. The chains above sagged. The pendulum dragged, swing heavy, as if the weight of the house itself pulled on it. I stood. I touched the iron bell as it passed. It was hot, burning, alive. A pulse ran up my arm, through my chest. The house shuddered. A new word burned into the oil at my feet. Namite. I opened my mouth. No sound came. My tongue stuck to my teeth. The house would not let me speak. My companion grabbed my arm. He whispered one word. Ladder. The pendulum screamed. The bell cracked down the middle, spilling fire. The priests shrieked, dials shattering, gears flying. The whole chamber convulsed. Walls bent, chains snapped. The floor split. We ran, across shaking boards, through falling gears, under breaking beams. The chamber collapsed behind us, the pendulum shattering into iron shards. We burst through a door that hadn't been there a moment before. It slammed shut, sealing the ruin behind. Silence, dark, only our breath, and the black book, warm in my hand, words bleeding across its page. You have broken the heart, but the house remembers. It will reset. We were not free. We had only broken the clock, and when the house wound itself again, it would not forgive us. Chapter 12. The Room Without Exit. The door slammed behind us. No latch, no seam, gone. We were in a room, square, perfectly square. 4 walls, bare plaster, white as bone. No window, no stair, no handle, only silence. The black book throbbed in my hands. I opened it. The page was already filled. You are here now. There is no way out. Stay. Count. Wait. I shut it. But the words burned through the cover, searing my palm. We walked the walls, measured them. 10 paces each side. Corners sharp. Plaster smooth. Nothing hidden. I pressed my ladder nail to the seam where wall met floor. The point would not bite. The house had sealed this place. A box. A trap. We sat back to back at the center. Dust on our coats glowed faint, enough to see each other's outlines. Our breath echoed too loud, bouncing from plaster like it didn't want to leave. Time passed. Or didn't. The room had no clocks, no measure but our own hearts. The house wanted us to be still, to stop moving, stop speaking, stop resisting. A cage is not for holding, it is for softening. After some stretch of silence, he spoke. One word, low, tired, count. So we did, together. 1, 2, 3, not aloud, in rhythm, with breath. At 10, a hairline crack etched itself across one wall. At 20, the crack deepened. At 30, it widened. We thought we were winning. We thought we were prying the house open with numbers. At 40, the crack spread into letters. At 50 words. At 60 sentences. Our sentences. Do not trust doors that multiply. Count yourself. Eat nothing. Every rule we had written burned into the plaster, line by line, wall by wall, until the room was filled with our own voices. They bled black, dripping down, puddling on the floor, soaking our boots. The house wasn't showing us escape. It was showing us ourselves. He stood, kicked at the plaster. It cracked, flaking behind it another wall. Same plaster. Same words. Our words. I tore at another seam with my nails. More plaster fell. More rules. Layer beneath layer. Each wall hiding another wall. Each one carved with our own handwriting. The house wasn't keeping us in. It was burying us in repetition. In our own attempts to survive, we stopped digging. We stopped counting. We sat again, breath ragged. The black book opened on its own. Its pages split wide, words writhing. The house does not need to build new cages. It only needs to give you your own. Your rules are walls. Your walls are endless. I slammed it shut. My hands shook. Ink leaked through my fingers like blood. The room changed. Not with cracks, with sound, footsteps. Soft, bare, circling us. But there was no one. Only the echo. Then a voice. Low. Familiar. Familiar mine. Why keep moving? Why fight? You wrote the rules. You already belong. The air rippled. The dust on my coat dimmed. And then me, another me, across the room, standing where no door had opened, face pale, eyes hollow, mouth full of black. It smiled. Behind him, another, and another. Shadows shaped like me, stepping from the walls, peeling out of plaster, dripping ink. Each with a fragment of my face wrong, each whispering my rules. Dozens of me, surrounding. He looked at me, scar glinting at his throat. I looked at him. We both knew. The room had made doubles before, but this was no trick of mirrors. This was our rules turned flesh, our survival trying to eat us alive. The doubles stepped closer. Their mouths moved in rhythm, chanting rules we'd written, voices layered, endless. Do not trust doors. Do not eat. Count yourself. The sound pressed in, heavier than walls. The rules were no longer ours. They belonged to the house. My chest tightened. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to kneel, to let the rules cradle me like prayer. But the more I believed, the stronger they grew. He shoved me, hard, snapped me back. His voice cut through the chant. New rule. We stared at each other, waiting, breathless. Then I spoke. The first words not written, not repeated, not borrowed. Break the rules. The doubles screamed, not human screams. Paper tearing, ink boiling. Their bodies split down the middle, black pouring out, spraying across plaster. The words on the walls blistered, bubbled, burned away. The ink puddles on the floor hissed, smoking, fading. When the last scream died, the room was bare, plaster smooth, no words, no cracks, no ink. And at the far wall, a door, plain, wood, handle waiting. We staggered toward it, our coats heavy with ash, dust smeared, my hands still black with ink. Before we left, I looked back. The room was empty, but faint, carved shallow into the floorboards where we had sat. One last rule, not ours, the house's. You will break the rules, and then you will need new ones. We stepped through the door. The latch clicked. Behind us, silence. Ahead, darkness, waiting. Chapter 13. The Visitor at the Gate. The darkness thickened as we walked. Not absence of light, a presence. It pressed between us, tugged at our arms, whispered through fabric. It wanted us apart. We leaned shoulder to shoulder, forcing it back. Our steps echoed, though there was no floor, only black beneath. The sound itself made the path. Every step rode a board underfoot. Every silence threatened to erase it. At last a glow ahead, dim gray, the outline of a gate, iron bars, tall, crooked, twisted into shapes that bent like ribs. Beyond it, faint daylight, real, honest, the first true light since the storm. My chest ached. I wanted to run, to throw myself at the bars, to believe escape was simple, but the house had taught me better. Nothing was simple here. She was waiting. Umbrella in one hand, bruised purple, map in the other, folded neat. The woman from the wardrobe mirror, from the banquet's last shard, from the sky in the basement. Her smile had not changed, but now her eyes were wrong. Too steady, too certain. Finally, she said. Her voice was calm, gentle, like a mother waiting at the school gate. We stopped 10 paces short. The black book in my coat twitched, its spine cracking. Words scrawled across its edge without opening. Not visitor, not guide, not outside. She tilted her head. You've come so far, she said. Longer than most. You should be proud. Her umbrella tapped the ground. Each tap echoed too loud. Behind her, the daylight flickered, shadows crawling over the grass. My companion gripped his ladder nail. Not real, he whispered. Her smile widened. Oh, I am real, she said. More real than you. Do you know why? We didn't answer. She lifted the map, unfolded it, held it between two fingers. The ink writhed across the paper, stretching, pulsing. The square that was the house grew, consuming the valley, blotting out the world. Because I am the one who leaves, she said. Every time. Someone must. The house requires it, and it has chosen me again. She stepped closer to the gate. Bars rattled. The lock hissed. Her shadow slipped through the gaps like smoke, spilling onto our side. I stepped back. The shadow touched my boot, cold, wet, like stepping in ink. The book tore itself open. Words screamed across the pages. Do not touch her. Do not follow her. She is the door. The gate behind her swung wide. Daylight blazed. Grass rippled. The smell of rain and soil filled the air. Home. It smelled like home. She extended her hand. Come, she said softly. Don't you want to be done? Her eyes flicked between us. One hand for me, one hand for him. If either of us took it, the house would count us. One would leave, the other would stay, or worse. We did not move. Her smile trembled. Her eyes blackened, pupils swelling until they filled the whites. Her voice deepened. Take my hand, or I will take yours. The gate screamed wider. The daylight dimmed. Behind her, the sky twisted into teeth. He moved first, not toward her, toward me. He shoved the ladder nail into my palm, hard enough to draw blood. Then he whispered, sideways. Before I could answer, he stepped forward. He took her hand. The house roared. The gate flared white. Daylight swallowed him whole. She smiled wide, too wide, teeth splitting her cheeks. Then both were gone. The gate slammed shut. Iron shrieked. Darkness fell. I stood alone. The ladder nail burned in my hand. The black book writhed at my chest. The ink on its page scrawled fresh. One remains. One is enough. The floor quaked. The bars bent inward. The gate twisted, reshaping into a mouth. And in its throat, the house breathed my name. Chapter 14. The House That Carries the Sky. The gate's bars groaned inward until they curved like ribs, closing me inside a throat. The black book throbbed at my chest, hot enough to blister skin. The ladder nail burned in my bleeding hand. I whispered his words sideways, but the walls only laughed, boards shifting like lips around teeth. I was alone, and the house had decided that was enough. The floor cracked. Not boards, not stone. Sky. Blue split open beneath me, filled with stars far too close. The same false constellations from the basement, rearranging into eyes and mouths. The house carried the sky inside its bones, and now it wanted to swallow me with it. I staggered back, but the crack widened. The stars pulsed. They hummed low, endless, a sound that vibrated my ribs. Hunger clenched inside me, not for food, but for surrender. To fall into the sky, to let it take me. The black book snapped open. Its pages turned themselves, words spilling across in my hand. One must remain, one must carry. You are the roof now. You are the sky. Ink bled up my arm, black veins crawling beneath skin, reaching for my throat. The hunger sharpened, pulling me toward the crack. I drove the ladder nail into my palm, hard. Blood welled, red mixing with black. Pain was real, mine, not the house's. The book shrieked. Pages curled, catching fire without flame, words burning to ash. But the ink in my veins did not fade. It writhed, alive, binding. The floor groaned wider. Stars flared, spelling rules across the sky below. Stay, count, obey. I shook my head. No. I dropped to my knees. I pressed the ladder nail into the boards. I carved new words into the wood with blood and iron. Break the sky. The house screamed. Not in walls, in me. My skull rattled. My bones hummed. The ink in my veins boiled, fighting. The stars cracked. Light split across the floor, shards of sky raining upward, cutting through plaster, boards, beams. The ceiling tore open, not into rafters, but into more sky stacked on sky, a tower of heavens folding inward. The house had built itself to carry all the skies it had stolen, and now they were breaking loose. Shadows spilled from the walls. Hundreds, thousands, every guest who had ever walked these halls. They screamed, not in pain, but in release. Each shadow tore upward, ripped into the sky as if it were water. Stars blinked out, one by one, as they were devoured. The house convulsed, stairs twisted, doors slammed. Rules carved themselves across every surface in frantic black. Do not break, do not speak, do not leave. But it was too late. The words collapsed into ash. The beams split. The sky tore. I clutched the nail. I clutched the book. I carved one last line into the floor. End it. The crack yawned wide. Stars screamed. The house fell. When I woke, I was outside. Grass under me. The storm gone. The valley wide and empty. No house, no gate, only silence. The map lay on the ground beside me. Blank, not torn, not square, only paper. The black book was gone. The ladder nail rusted in my palm. Dust on my coat faint, fading. I stood. The sky above was ours again. Moon, cloud, constellations I knew. But when I blinked, for just a breath, they rearranged. Eyes, teeth, a ladder. Then they settled back. The house was gone, but it had carried the sky into me, and I knew one thing. One rule. The last. The house waits for someone else. Always.